Hawaii is our winner down here, and then Louisiana is the one near the bottom, and we're, not too far from Louisiana's ranking. So, but you can see the states that are doing better, the lighter colored states, definitely. So, all right, so latest breastfeeding rates from the CDC based on babies born in 2012. These come out every year in August, so you can see this is breastfeeding initiation. So we are really approaching or right at 80%, and I'll have this on another slide. But this is any breastfeeding at 6 months and any breastfeeding at 12. And then here's our exclusive. But you can see a big difference, of course, in these two slides. So that's definitely our challenge. We're making slow progress in increasing those. So here you can see the actual numbers and how we rank. So look at that slide for a bit. And, of course, you see all of our rankings are in green. So that means we improved from last year's numbers. We came up. Anything else significant you notice on that slide, on those rankings? We're not in the bottom 10. Thank you, Barbara. Just a few years ago, these would have all said 40-something, 45, 48, 49 in our rankings. There's one significant point on there that we don't usually see. Yeah, exclusive at 3 months. We're actually above the national average. So that's kudos to y'all, too. That what happens in the hospital definitely impacts if this is going to happen. So we are above the national average. All right, well, let's see how we compare to number one and who's last. And when I just looked in each of these categories, and you can see Washington, California, so we've got our West Coast states that tend to have some of the highest rates, 94% initiation. Wow. How do they do that? But even California has any breastfeeding at 6 months. 2/3 of their babies are still breastfeeding at 6 months. Look at how that compares to us, 44%, so significantly higher. And oh my gosh, anybody who is a lactation consultant, maternal child health professional, and works in Mississippi, I feel for them. They have a huge challenge. Look at the numbers. Less than 60% even start out breastfeeding. It's been a long time since our numbers were that low. And less than 10% exclusive breastfeeding at 6 months. So, all right, well, here you can just see this in a more visual form. This is, once again, first, middle, and last. So comparing those states on the previous chart to Oklahoma and then to the state that was in the last, had the lowest numbers. So you can see where, our red bar is kind of in the middle, sometimes closer and to the number one and sometimes closer to the last ranking state. But, these numbers are really sad, I think. So to give you a picture there. And then this is Oklahoma's breastfeeding rate, so you can see how we've improved over the past few years with any breastfeeding, initiation at 6 and 12, and then exclusive at 3 and 6. So we're going the right direction, guys, and that's the good news. We are making progress, and this is a hard act to turn around and get going the right direction. So it takes a lot of work on multiple levels to do that. And here we compare to the national average. So yay, we have one of our bars that's above the national average. And we're not too far from some of these numbers, so maybe we'll continue to pass that. All right, well, let's take just a brief look at how breastfeeding rates compare across racial and ethnic groups, and that was our whole day topic yesterday. So here's our Hispanic, non-Hispanic white, non-Hispanic black and Asian, American Indian, Alaska Native, and then multiracial. So who's losing this race? And you see our babies of color, our American Indian babies and multiracial babies tend to have the lowest breastfeeding rates, both initiation and duration. and when you think about what some of the health outcomes for those populations, once again, the work that y'all do can really have an impact. And we know that mothers aren't reaching their own breastfeeding goals. This is Karen's Karen's grandson. She sent this picture to me, and she said, "Look at this. He found out he wasn't breastfed." We were kidding, but anyway. But we do know that 60% of mothers did not reach their own breastfeeding goals, and you can see this will be familiar to many of us, the challenges that they face. So in pink. Now, how many of you are aware if your hospital has participated in the MPINK survey? I see a few hands. So those of you that aren't sure about that, go back and ask, because over 80% of our birthing hospitals usually participate in this. We don't have 2015 numbers yet. They're analyzing that, so hopefully we'll get those sometime this year. But we have made great progress, and though what I like to say is a 75 on a test with a 100-point total, what letter grade is that? Let's see. Anybody want to go to a trauma unit that scores C on best practice? I don't think so. How about a cardiovascular unit? So, and RC is even lower. But let's look at how we compare. I made this slide to look at Oklahoma is the green bar, and then comparing us to Mississippi, who tended to have the lowest MPINK scores, and then New Hampshire, who tended to have, on average, the highest MPINK scores, and then the national average. So you can take a look at that. So where do you see that, most hospitals are doing pretty well. This is like, do you have a policy in place? The New Hampshire, look, is doing really well on discharge care. That's, really the step 10 of baby friendly. But you can see quite some differences there. So hospitals are working on this, and that's good to know. Still some room for improvement, though. And I'll show you this a little on a slide that's a little easier to see. So here's how Oklahoma has improved from the very first time this survey was done to the last 2013, which is the most current we have. So we've come up quite a bit on how many babies go to breast within the first hour after a vaginal delivery, and according to the MPINK question, within 2 hours after a C-section. How many of you are trying or working on skin-to-skin in the OR? All right, good. And improvement, but so you can see this looks great. We've more than doubled, but yet that's only half our hospitals that say they're doing this. So that means that half of our mothers are being told to limit time at breast, and half of our babies are separated from their mothers. And what happened here? We kind of struggle with this pacifier thing, don't we? And this is good, but we still have half, almost, of our hospitals that are giving out the formula gift bags to new mothers. And then staff education. How confident do our nurses feel in being able to follow best practice guidelines and provide the best care to their mothers if we're not training them? So, all right. Well, the good news is this slide changes almost every day. Lots of hospitals around the country are working on baby friendly, and we are now up to over 16%. Just a few years ago, this number was just parked at 3%. Every time I did a talk, 3% of our hospitals were baby friendly designated, of babies born in a baby friendly hospital. So now here in Oklahoma, you can see how we compare. We have 4. We'll be recognizing them today. So, all right, let me just go ahead and get it started. Where's our Cherokee Nation crew? All right, and Comanche County. All right, those are our 2 newest ones. So, and then where's our Baptist? I see y'all in the same row, Integris Baptist. And Claremore. Do we have anybody from Claremore Indian today? So maybe not quite yet. We'll have big recognition for them a little bit later. And one hospital that we hope to announce here in the next several weeks. So, And here you can see how many we have on the pathway. And this is, changing. We have one hospital that's getting ready to move into dissemination, another one that's getting ready to move from development into dissemination. And, the one that's getting ready to, another one into designation. 2 or 3 more that are ready to have their assessment this year. And a bunch that are interested, maybe have participated in some webinars and haven't quite gotten on the bus yet. But that's not all of our hospitals, so we still have a lot more work to do here. Now, the Oklahoma Perinatal Quality Improvement Collaborative recognizes hospitals that are really working on a whole package of quality improvement initiatives. And one of those, of course, to be considered a spotlight hospital is that you're either baby-friendly designated or you're participating in becoming baby-friendly in Oklahoma. So, and that's kudos to those hospitals that are working on all of those. That's a lot of work, and we know it. So a few new publications for you to be aware of. The Academy of Breastfeeding Medicine just updated their position on breastfeeding. And just a couple of quotes from this, that this topic warrants serious, increased, and significant attention in medical training. Okay, docs, you guys need to pay attention to this. You need to learn about this, and you need to, know what the current research is. Wouldn't that make our jobs easier if we had our physicians, more of our physicians that were knowledgeable? And I really like this. Breastfeeding is a human rights issue for both mother and child. Children have the right to the highest attainable standard of health. Women have the right to breastfeed as related to their self-determined reproductive rights. It's not our right to tell them whether they can or cannot. It's the mother's decision. And then, all right, where's Dr. Stube? I'm going to embarrass her. She was the lead author on this new publication from ACOG. So our OBGYNs need to be aware of what their own association says. Strongly encourage women to breastfeed. Clinical management is a core component. The 10 steps should be integrated into hospital care. And, okay, if you're not bag-free yet, if you haven't looked at the formula marketing piece, the OB-GYNs say we need to be taking care of this issue. So, well, a few other quick updates. Ingrid, how am I doing on time? I have that. Okay, good. So at our Oklahoma Breastfeeding Resource Center, we have just finally, after 2 years of hard work, gotten a formal clinical lactation training program approved, so we can actually take interns, if you will. We can't call them interns. That was part of the challenge at a university health science center, but they are clinical trainees, but they can come and spend 6 months with us here on campus and get their clinical experience to get their meet the criteria for the lactation consultant exam. So, and the information for that is on our website. Just, click over here under Pathway 3 so you can see that. Well, we have a resource table, a couple of resource tables up there in the back behind where the coffee and water is. So be sure and take a look at that. Not everything was in your packet, but we do have information about our coalition, COBA, Coalition of Oklahoma Breastfeeding Advocates. And you can see we had a couple of strategic planning meetings last year. So these 5 items are our key priorities to focus on. And the reason we had a strategic planning meeting was because we had actually achieved all of the objectives from our previous strategic planning session in 2006. So we were quite proud of that and said, well, it's time to regroup and refocus and what's going on and how can our state coalition support those efforts. So take a look and see. We have various committees, and if there's something that you see you want to get involved in, then that's available back there. One of the things that you have in your packet is the revised model hospital infant feeding policy. Many of you are probably familiar with the first one, and we updated that. And I actually, for you, for a working document, left the highlights in there so you could see what we changed from the original policy. And we worked to bring the wording more into line with what Baby Friendly USA expects to have in a hospital infant feeding policy. We're still working on getting endorsements renewed. Previously, we had a number of statewide organizations that endorsed that, so you won't see that info in there just yet, but I wanted to make sure you guys got a copy of that today. And I would ask y'all, be thinking if there's another model policy of some sort that would be helpful for your coalition to develop and make available to everybody and kind of do some of that groundwork, let us know. Off the top of your head, does anybody have one that comes to mind that would be helpful? You have all the policies that you need. You don't want any more policies? So, all right. Well, a little bit about our hotline. The hotline, Oklahoma Breastfeeding Hotline, is in its 7th, well, let's see, am I losing track now? We officially launched in 2009, so yeah, in our 7th year. So we average about 2,800 calls per year. About a third of the calls come after normal business hours, so it is a 24/7 number. And according to the mother, about 40% of the time she calls, it's an urgent situation or she wants to call back, immediately. And one of the things, the challenges that we have with returning calls, of course, with this younger generation and cell phones and so forth, is about 5% of our callers that are not reached. Actually, there's probably another 15% that have voicemail and we're able to leave a message, and we may be able to actually answer her question in that message. So she may not call back because she called asking about where can I get a breast pump or something, and we were able to leave that information for her. But about 5% that we can't, reach at all. They may not have voicemail, or they won't answer a blocked return phone call on their caller ID, or we just play phone tag. So we are aware of that and continue to try to work on that. About 2/3 of our callers are first-time mothers, and about a quarter of them call when the baby's less than a week old. So soon after you send them home from the hospital, they are calling the hotline, and over half are calling when their baby is 6 weeks old or younger. So, and of course, pretty consistently from year to year, these are the top 3 reasons that they call. Something to do with milk production, no surprise there. That one pretty much wins every year, and infant issues and medications. So a few things. Actually, is Cindy here today? I don't know if she's gotten here yet. One of our newer hotline LCs is a bilingual IBCLC in the Tulsa area, and she kind of did a little informal survey of 10 Hispanic mothers, asking them about calling the hotline, or would they call, or why wouldn't they call. And so some of the concerns that they expressed, one is that they'd get asked for their Social Security number. So we do not ask for any kind of information like that. That is not true. Let's get that one cleared up. Some would ask a relative to call, and that's okay. Our hotline LCs talk to dads, they talk to grandma, they talk to anybody who calls. Several thought they wouldn't be understood, maybe because of the language or the culture. We, of course, have the one bilingual IBCLC, and we also use a translator service. So we want to make sure that y'all know that our non-English speaking or ESL families can certainly call. But probably the biggest one that we want to make sure they know is they think there's a live person sitting by the phone. It's not like 911. We don't have funding to pay somebody 24 hours a day to sit by the phone. So